Okay, so I want to, hello, say this without trying to sound like I'm trying to move on too quickly from Tortured Poets Department, or that I am overlooking the upcoming release of Reputation and debut Taylor's version. All this isn't even looking at Easter eggs. I wouldn't even call this a theory. This is more of I think it would be a cool idea if XYZ happened. And so here's what I'm saying. Now, I suppose maybe there is a little bit of basis for thinking that Easter eggs have been laid. And so that's mainly just when she came back on tour after the release of Tortured Poets and she started sporting all of these orangey, burny, glowy colored costumes. It was very reminiscent of Fire. And then in her Time Person of the Year interview, she was talking about how the Rep Vault tracks are going to be Fire. And so we seem to be thinking about Fire lately, and in the background projections for like But Daddy I Love Him on tour, there's this sense of like this desolate background, like everything's been burned to the ground, like, you know, scorching fire of justice, fire of other just grand destruction. I don't know. And she has long incorporated the use of fire into her work in various ways. I think we've seen it a little bit more recently, but I'm not entirely sure. And then, actually, we're gonna backtrack. We're gonna backtrack to You're Losing Me, where she says, getting tired even for a phoenix, always rising from the ashes, mending all of her gashes. And so, imagery-wise, I've been associating Tortured Poets Department with ashes and death, yay, and just overall lack of color in a way that implies lack of health. And so I thought, and probably other people have thought this too, wouldn't it be interesting if the next album was a fire imagery and phoenix imagery, or at least the phoenix would be incorporated into it somehow. If it would be that kind of album, a very colorful album. You know how in Avatar, if you haven't seen Avatar, I'm sorry, but you know, there's 4 elements. Fire Nation is the bad guys, but then, and so it's like, oh, you think of that as like evil, but then there's an episode later on where they kind of discover or think more in depth and philosophically about fire and realize that fire isn't just destruction, but it is life and it's energy. Sorry if that's a bit of a spoiler, but it's fine. And so for someone like Taylor, who has been, or at least felt burned a lot through her life and has even referred to herself as a phoenix, I think that this could be interesting imagery to go with. Now, that being said, I don't think that the line in You're Losing Me is an Easter egg. What I'm trying to determine is kind of the creative path, how we go from one area to the next area. Because I know the Easter egg thing can get very, very intense and we're looking for a lot of things and so on and so forth. But sometimes I just think that not everything is an Easter egg. Sometimes it's just because Taylor is an individual, and as an individual, she has certain tastes. She has certain things that she's into, like how we've had more of an incorporation of just like murder stories over the past handful of years, and I think she likes murder. No, I think she seems like she falls like a lot of like the true crime type of stuff, and so that becomes injected into her vernacular of creativity, if that makes any sense. So I don't think that everything is an Easter egg. However, I do think that certain things that are present in whatever work that we're given at the time, there will be indications of what's coming next, even if she doesn't know it herself, because what she's into is what she's into. How she feels like expressing things is how she feels like expressing things. And it's not just like a sharp right turn every time she releases a new album. It's a flow. It's a connection. And I think that she tries to dress things up differently so that they are distinctive. But I imagine that the initial creative process is much more blended together than sometimes we think. I guess if I had to put forth a theory is that we're getting a fire or phoenix energy, colorful album next. That's my thought, which I don't think is a particularly unique one. I'm sure other people have come up with other things like this, but I just wanted to say it. And again, this is less about trying to trace Easter eggs, but more trying to figure out where she is creatively right now. Because frankly, I think sometimes that is more interesting to me than looking for Easter eggs. I'd love to know what she's reading. What is she listening to? What movies have been connecting with her lately? Would love to know that. But we don't. So we just have to think about it this way. But anyway, I am not trying to move on from Tortured Poets yet. This is just a thread I've pulled at, and I want to see if it continues at all. Because she does love fire, and I think she loves that imagery. I think she loves what it does. I mean, she also likes rain a lot. And so it's just interesting to think about which aspects of her work have we already seen glimpses of that may be fleshed out into a full album and kind of concept later on. It's just interesting to think about. So there it is. But as always, we'll see. There's so many things already on the horizon that is genuinely far away, but it may not be as far away as we think. Just like how Tortured Poets was just like, oh, here's the next album, by the way. And okay, there it was. Anyway, I will talk to you later. That's all I have to say. Goodbye.